Is Jalen Hurts going to be 100%? We saw him play in week 18. He was still dealing with that shoulder injury that's kind of affected his play a little bit. And head coach Nick Sirianni said he still expects it to be a little bit of an issue in the divisional round. He's still going to play. Will he be 100%? I don't know. Is Daniel Jones going to play the same caliber of play that we saw last week against the Vikings? I don't know. How do you see this game playing out?
Wow, there's a lot to talk about in this game. I
Lot.
mean, do we get to talk about what happened against the Minnesota Vikings at least a little bit
Yeah.
because that
Yes, of course.
was crazy. I mean, obviously, I had a feeling that Daniel Jones was going to play well against the
Mm-hmm.
Vikings, but what he did with his legs along with his arm was just incredible to me. Like for the Vikings defense to be so inept and just not be able to prevent him from doing anything that he wanted to do throughout the entire game was just
Yeah.
like crazy to me. Just crazy. Like I couldn't believe it. And I think the Vikings earned my man a lot of money. That being said, the test he has this week against the Philadelphia Eagles defense is going to be an
Mm-hmm.
entirely different animal. Entirely. So I don't really expect. I mean, look. So this is the way I want to look at it. This is a divisional game. NFC East against NFC East. We know that they like to play each other close, but the Eagles are the superior team to me, and I feel that this could
Yeah.
be a game that plays out similar to the 49ers and the Seahawks, where it's close through the majority of the game, and then the better team pulls away at the end, and for a number of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Like the one thing that you want to be a little bit hesitant on the Philadelphia Eagles is this: Jalen Hurts was injured. You have Lane Johnson coming back from some injuries, so a lot of the momentum that they built on, like from the beginning of the season, the middle of the season, they lost some of that going into the back half of the season. And you want to know what are they going to look like after a bye week in the playoffs, coming against a team in the New York Giants that seem like they could be one of the hottest teams in the playoffs right now. But let's use the Giants as an example. They sat Daniel Jones, they sat Saquon Barkley, and a whole bunch of other guys, and they came out with their hair on
Mm-hmm.
fire against the Minnesota Vikings. So if the Philadelphia Eagles stars do the same thing coming off a bye, then it should be a bloodbath because I have no worries about the Eagles running the ball against the Giants. They may not have the success that they had early on in the season, but I think they should be able to run the
Mm-hmm.
ball pretty effectively. And if that run game gets going, we have to worry about stopping Miles Sanders. You have to worry about Jalen Hurts legs because they're now going to run Jalen again because it's the playoffs. They're trying to get to the ship now. So they're going to use his legs as well. And when you get so focused on trying to stop the run, oh, then what do you have to contend with? You have A.J. Brown on one side. You have Devontae Smith on the other side. And let's not
Mm-hmm.
forget, we saw what TJ Hawkinson did to that defense two times. The two times they played him this
Yeah.
year. Dallas Goddard can replicate that with the Eagles
Yeah.
because he's that type of dude in their offensive scheme as well. So when I look at everything that all the challenges that the Eagles present to the Giants defense, and then on top of that, this is going to be one of the most formidable defenses that the Giants offense will face. And now it's playoff time
Mm-hmm.
too. I think it's going to be a hard test for the Giants to try to do what they did against the Minnesota Vikings. That being said, with the total being at 48, I seems like that looks about right to me. Um, when you look
Mm-hmm.
at the 7.5, I think the Eagles could end up pulling away at the end. So right now, I don't want to touch anything on this game, at least right now. But I feel like the Eagles are
Yeah.
the better team and that they still come away with the victory. So you want to just do money line and do money line, but that's all I got for you right now.
Yeah, Jared, I want to pose a point because the last two times that Jalen Hurts has played the Giants, he didn't have to deal with both DBs, Xavier McKinney and Adoree Jackson, right? They didn't play. They were back against Minnesota. They limited Kirk Cousins. They limited Justin Jefferson. I could maybe see that happening a little bit with Jalen Hurts just because he still is dealing with that nagging injury. He might not be 100%. But then you also look at the Eagles defense, and they held Daniel Jones to 169 passing yards in their Week 14 game. I know that was like on a stretch where the Giants went 0-3-1, I think it was, and they've been playing a little bit better since then, but they still have a league leading average of only 178 basically passing yards per game given up to opponents. So I feel like the Giants run game and Saquon Barkley is going to be a huge key to success for the Giants in this one, taking advantage of really the Eagles, I guess, only weak spot that they have on their team.
Yeah, the Giants' offense was unbelievable last week. I don't
So
even
good.
know how else to frame it. I saw a number here that I was trying to pull up. during it, and I just found it. So they had a 100% series conversion rate. Basically, that just means picking up at least one first down. Every drive that they started, every single drive that they started the drive with a pass, they picked up at least one first down. They didn't have a 3 and out every single time they started a drive with a pass. They had a 68% success rate on early down dropbacks, the highest of any team on wildcard weekend, obviously. But to put that in perspective, Seattle and Kansas City led the NFL in the – remember, we talked about early downs. They're a little more predictive than third downs, which are more volatile. So when I look at early down success, to me, that's like the gold standard of having success in the NFL. When you can gain yards on first and second down consistently, that to me is the gold standard. Seattle and Kansas City did it the best this year. The full season was 54% for those two teams' early down success rate. And the Giants had a 68% success rate on early down. It is unbelievable. It was a shredding. I can't even come up with a better word for it. And Tank, the Vikings in 2 games against Isaiah Hodgins had more than half of his entire receiving yard total for the entire season. They made him look. They made Isaiah Hodgins look like Randy freaking Moss. So it is going to be a massive step up in class this week against an Eagles defense that is light years ahead of where the Vikings are. Jonathan Gannon's done a nice job.
Yeah.
The scheme has been solid. I criticized it earlier in the year. I didn't think they were getting enough pressure. I was wrong. They've gotten just enough. Plenty of pressure. They have 4 players with at least 11 sacks this year. They're a little healthier off the bye. And I think the Giants offense is just, you're going to see a very different Giants offense this week. On the other side of the ball, that's where I think the volatility comes in, because Jalen Hurts clearly is not 100%. He's only played now. This is going to be his second game in the last 5 weeks. So it's fair to question his rust factor and how sharp he's going to be. And the offensive line, I know Lane Johnson's going to play, but he still has a sports hernia that clearly has hampered him a little bit. And in the 2 sacks without Lane, or the 2 games without Lane Johnson over the last few weeks, the Eagles have allowed 9 sacks, 6 of them in that game to the Saints. They really struggled in that game to the Saints. And then they allowed 3 sacks in the game of the Giants when it was all backups. Now, the one positive for Philly, Azeez Ojulari injured his quad against the Vikings. He has the 2nd most sacks on the Giants despite only playing 7 games. If he can't play, that's a big loss for that Giants pass rush, and it makes Jalen Hurts' job that much easier. But Hurts hasn't played great. I mean, he hasn't played great over the last few games. He was hurt, and then he didn't play great against the Giants a couple weeks ago. And Wink Martindale is going to throw a lot. He's going to throw the kitchen sink at him. And Jalen's numbers against the blitz have been pretty good. He's got a lot of scrambles, obviously. But I don't know how Jalen Hurts is going to play this week. I think that's the mystery in this game. I know the Giants offense is going to struggle a little bit. They are not going to have as easy of a time than they did last week. So it's all about, can Jalen Hurts rise to the level of a MVP caliber starting quarterback in the NFL? Because the Giants defense is not good. Kirk Cousins shredded them last week. And I think if Jalen Hurts plays well, the Eagles win this game easily. But I don't know if he's going to play well. That's a big question mark for me.